I'm Thalia Morrison. The smoke from the backyard grill stung my eyes that afternoon in Charlotte, the kind of humid North Carolina heat that makes your shirt cling to your back. Dad raised his glass of bourbon and announced it loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. $200,000 for Preston to study luxury hospitality management in Monaco. Everyone cheered. Cousins, neighbors, even the mailman who'd stopped by. I waited for the applause to die down before I asked quietly, my voice barely carrying over the sizzle of burgers, what about my film editing course at the community college? Mom didn't even look up from arranging potato salad on paper plates. Thalia, you're not worth a dime. The words hit harder than the afternoon sun beating down on my shoulders. I remember the exact pattern of condensation on my sweet tea glass, the way my younger brother Preston grinned like he'd won the lottery, the smell of charcoal and betrayal mixing in the thick air. I tossed my napkin on the picnic table, grabbed my phone from beside the coleslaw, and booked a lift to Charlotte Douglas International. No goodbye, no tears, no dramatic speech, just the screen door slamming behind me as I walked out of that house for what I thought might be the last time. 5 years later, Preston was sprawled by that same kidney-shaped pool, scrolling mindlessly on his phone, when he spotted my name on the Forbes 400 list of richest Americans under 30. He called Dad, his voice cracking with something between disbelief and desperation. Dad, how does she have all that? If you've ever been told you're worthless by the people who should lift you up, hit like and subscribe right now. This story is about to get real, and you won't want to miss what happens next. I remember that Christmas when I was in 4th grade, the one where the differences became impossible to ignore. Preston had his big moment the year before, and our house in the Dilworth neighborhood of Charlotte turned into a full-blown holiday spectacle despite the unseasonably warm weather. Dad dragged in a 12-foot artificial tree from the garage, its branches loaded with white LED lights that pulsed to Mariah Carey pumping through the Bose sound system. Guests showed up in tacky holiday sweaters, clutching cups of spiked eggnog as Mom directed the gift reveal like she was producing a reality show. Preston plopped down on the thick shag carpet, grinning as Dad slid over shiny gold-wrapped box the size of a microwave. He tore it open to reveal a top-of-the-line DJI Mavic drone with a 4K camera and collision avoidance sensors. "This will teach you to aim high in business, son," Dad said, messing up Preston's hair while everyone watched. The crowd went wild. Relatives whipped out their iPhones, filming for Instagram and Facebook with hashtags like #NextBigCO and #EntrepreneurInTraining. Mom fussed over the controller instructions. "He's got that spark," she bragged to Aunt Carol, to the neighbors, to anyone within earshot. Preston launched it right there inside, buzzing dangerously close to the ceiling fan, and everyone just laughed it off like it was the cutest thing they'd ever seen. My Christmas came the following year. Same massive tree, same twinkling lights synchronized to Jingle Bell Rock, but the vibe was completely different. Dad handed me a plain white envelope, no gold wrapping, no ribbon, nothing. Something practical this round, Thalia. Inside was a Charlotte area transit system pass loaded with 30 rides. "Time to handle the city on your own," Dad said, crossing his arms like he was teaching me some valuable life lesson. "Toughens you up, makes you independent." Mom nodded enthusiastically while serving pumpkin pie. "Self-reliance beats fancy toys any day. You'll thank us later." No drone, no excitement, no Instagram posts. Just the transit pass and a 20-minute lecture on responsibility that dragged well into the evening. I pocketed it and stepped onto the back deck while everyone's attention shifted back to Preston rehearsing his thank you speech for the family video Mom was editing on her iPad. The pool glowed under the string lights Dad had hung, and I sat on the edge, dangling my legs in the chlorinated water, feeling that cool bite against my skin. That transit pass became my ticket to freedom, though. I rode the bus downtown every Saturday to the main branch of the public library on North Tryon Street, a long ride I took completely alone even at 11 years old. I camped out in the technology corner, teaching myself editing programs on the shared desktop computers. I'd cut footage from free stock sites, layer effects I learned from YouTube tutorials, match audio in sessions that stretched 4, 5, 6 hours. The librarians got to know me by name. Ms. Rodriguez would save my favorite computer for me, the one in the corner with the newest version of Adobe Premiere. In high school, I submitted a mini-documentary on Charlotte's revitalization efforts to the Mecklenburg County Student Media Competition. Shot entirely on a borrowed Canon Rebel from the school's journalism department, polished during countless lunch breaks in the media lab while everyone else was eating cafeteria pizza. It won first place and a $500 prize. I printed the award certificate at the FedEx down the street and practically ran home to show Dad. He was in the driveway washing his silver Silverado, country music playing from the truck's speakers. "Check this out," I said breathlessly. "I placed first in the whole county." He glanced at it while drying his hands on a red shop towel. "Solid effort, kiddo, but will it pay the bills? Awards are nice, but winners bring in actual money." He went right back to scrubbing the truck's chrome grille. Mom heard about it later, while helping Preston prepare his Model UN presentation at the dining room table. "Video stuff. That's adorable. Failure. Really. But maybe channel that energy into something more visible, like your brother's diplomatic achievements." She never asked to watch the documentary. Not once. Preston ran through his speech about international trade policy, getting enthusiastic nods and suggestions for every inflection, every gesture. I stashed the certificate in my bedroom, beside that original transit pass that had made it all possible. The holidays followed the same pattern year after year. Preston scored upgrades, high-end MacBook Pro, networking events with Dad's business contacts, constant spotlight at every family gathering. Mine remained basic: transit tips, budgeting lectures, emphasis on measurable outcomes and realistic expectations. The lift sped away from the smoke and cheers, leaving that backyard barbecue behind in a blur of oak trees and suburban streets. Landing at the small regional airport in Wilmington felt like stepping into a different universe, the salty ocean air wrapping around me like a promise of reinvention. I wheeled my single-weathered suitcase through the tiny terminal, heart pounding from the leap I'd just taken, from the bridge I'd just burned. That's when I spotted her, Aunt Colette, standing by the baggage claim with a handmade poster board sign decorated with seashells that read "Welcome Home, Failure" in sparkly purple letters. She enveloped me in a hug that smelled of coconut sunscreen and lavender fabric softener, her voice warm against my ear. "You've made the bravest choice, sweetheart. Let's get you settled." Her beach cottage overlooked the grey-blue waves of Wrightsville Beach, a cozy 2-bedroom bungalow filled with driftwood sculptures and shelves packed with vintage Polaroid cameras from her photography days. She cleared out the guest room that very night, fluffing pillows with lighthouse patterns and stocking the mini-fridge with fresh peaches and sweet tea. "Stay as long as you need," she said, pressing a spare key attached to a $100 keychain into my palm. "This is your safe harbor now." As we sat on the screened porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of coral and gold, she listened without interrupting while I poured out everything: the raw ache from Mom's words, the years of being invisible, the weight of always coming second. Her eyes, the same green as mine, softened with understanding. "They undervalued you for far too long, honey. But here, you'll discover you're worth oceans more than they ever imagined." The next morning, Aunt Colette brewed strong coffee in a French press and laid out a plan over blueberry pancakes. "Pain fuels the best stories," she said, tapping her temple with one finger. "Channel it into something they can't possibly ignore." She was a retired National Geographic photographer who'd built a small but devoted online following by sharing North Carolina's hidden coastal gems, and her wisdom became my lifeline over those first uncertain weeks. I crashed on her overstuffed couch, job hunting during the day and brainstorming content ideas at night under the glow of fairy lights she'd strung across the living room. She taught me to scout free editing apps on my cracked iPhone screen, turning grainy beach sunset clips into miniature masterpieces with just transitions and royalty-free music. Desperate for cash to contribute something to her household, I landed a waitressing gig at a bustling seafood restaurant on Lamina Avenue called the Driftwood Grill. The shifts were absolutely grueling: endless trays of shrimp and grits, fish tacos, and frozen margaritas under flickering Edison bulbs, tourists barking orders in accents from Ohio and New Jersey and everywhere in between. Tips came in crumpled dollar bills and loose change, barely covering my contribution to Aunt Colette's electric bill. But the chaos sparked ideas. I'd sneak breaks to film quick clips: pelicans diving for fish, street musicians playing banjos, the neon glow of the old Blockade Runner hotel sign against twilight skies. "Authenticity sells," Aunt Colette encouraged, reviewing my rough cuts over late-night shrimp boils on the porch. "Show the grind, not just the glamour," Aunt Colette kept saying, and those words became my North Star. One evening after a double shift left my feet blistered and my apron stained with cocktail sauce, I nearly fell for an online scam. Some shady talent manager contacted me through Instagram, promising quick cash for editing gigs, but demanding a $300 registration fee upfront. I was actually pulling up Venmo when Aunt Colette caught me, practically snatching the phone from my hands. Red flag, honey. Real opportunities never demand payment first. She shared her own stories, photographing weddings for pennies in her 20s, nearly losing her camera equipment to a fake studio rental. I learned the hard way so you don't have to. Her stories turned my naivety into strategy. Emboldened and educated, I dove deeper into TikTok, tailoring content to coastal Carolina vibes. Using just my phone's basic editing tools, I created a challenge video, locals doing the shag dance on the beach, overlaid with glitch effects and upbeat beach music. Aunt Colette hyped it from her own account, duetting and sharing to boost visibility. Posted at golden hour, it absolutely exploded. Likes poured in like a storm surge. Comments flooded with fire emojis. This girl's edits are insane, and where has she been hiding? Strangers shared their own underdog stories, resonating with my caption, rising from the ashes, one clip at a time. Nights blurred into creation sessions in that small living room, fairy lights twinkling as waves crashed beyond the dunes. Aunt Colette became my unofficial business mentor, critiquing transitions and suggesting sound bites that punched emotionally. Make them feel your fire, she'd say, passing me chamomile tea for my sore throat from recording voiceovers. That iPhone, once a relic of my old dismissed life, transformed into a portal. Followers trickled in, then surged after I stitched a response to a luxury travel influencer's yacht video, contrasting it with my budget beaches a better take. The video hit 3 million views in 48 hours. Balancing plates at the Driftwood Grill honed my multitasking in ways I never expected, the same mental split screen I used for complex edits. When a rude customer once snapped, "Hurry it up, girl, we don't have all day," echoing old family dismissals, I smiled through it and later filmed a subtle server life hacks reel that racked up 500,000 views. Aunt Colette celebrated each milestone with high fives and homemade key lime pie from her grandmother's recipe. See? You're building an empire on your own terms, baby girl. As savings grew from tips and micro-sponsorships, $50 here, $200 there from small brands wanting shout-outs, gratitude anchored me. Her spare room evolved into a full creative studio, walls pinned with storyboards and mood boards, a ring light permanently set up in the corner. She never once pushed for details about the family I'd left behind, respecting the silence I desperately needed to heal. Instead, she filled those voids with laughter over morning coffee, lessons about business learned from decades of freelancing, proving that blood wasn't the only bond capable of healing deep wounds. One dawn, as I uploaded another edit, a time-lapse of sunrise over the pier paired with motivational spoken-word poetry, a notification chime that changed everything. My first real brand inquiry, offering $2,000 for a campaign. Aunt Colette peeked over my shoulder at the email, grinning wide enough to show the gap between her front teeth. Told you the world was noticing, didn't I? That brand deal led to another, then another. Within 6 months, I'd saved enough to invest in professional equipment, a MacBook Pro, Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, a proper camera setup. I rebranded as Thalia Edits with a sleek logo in electric blue script that Aunt Colette helped me design over wine and takeout sushi. A woman named Jade reached out from Raleigh. She owned a mid-sized digital marketing agency specializing in influencer campaigns. Your aesthetic is exactly what we need for our social media department. Interested in going remote to start? We negotiated via Zoom calls, and I pushed for equity instead of straight salary. She agreed to 5% ownership if I stayed 2 years. I packed light and rented a small loft in downtown Raleigh, exposed brick walls perfect for backdrop when I filmed tutorial content. My first major project was revamping a sustainable fashion brand's entire Instagram presence. I storyboarded 30 days of content, sourced ethical stock footage, layered smooth animations. Launch day, their engagement tripled within a week. Jade looped me into bigger clients after that. Tech startups launching apps, restaurant chains rebranding, even a regional politicians campaign that I politely declined on principle. My portfolio website, built over a single caffeine-fueled weekend, showcased case studies with before and after metrics that spoke for themselves. Revenue trickled at first, then surged like a riptide. Freelance gigs at $500 each quickly stacked to $5,000, then $15,000 monthly. My agency cut covered overhead and then some. I invested in software upgrades, hired a virtual assistant named Brianna to handle the email deluge, took online courses about scaling digital services. Then I did something smart. I productized my skills. Created template packs, transition bundles, color grading presets, sound effect libraries, and sold them on Gumroad. Passive income started flowing in while I slept. Hit 6 figures in year 1, and I reinvested every spare dollar into paid advertising for the Thalia Edits brand. Collaborations rolled in naturally after that. Co-edits with rising creators, shout-out exchanges that snowballed my follower count past 800,000 across platforms. Jade promoted me to creative director, and suddenly I was leading team meetings via Zoom, managing other editors, approving campaigns for Fortune 500 clients. I pitched a subscription model for premium editing assets, launched it to a waiting list of 12,000 people I'd been building for months. The 7-figure mark crossed on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. An invoice from a major beverage company cleared, pushing my annual revenue past $1 million. After setting aside taxes, the rest fueled aggressive expansion. I started scouting properties online, eyes fixed on returning to the Carolina coast. Found a penthouse in a new development on Wrightsville Beach, floor-to-ceiling windows, private rooftop deck, infinity edge pool that seemed to blend right into the Atlantic horizon. Closed remotely with an all-cash offer. Keys arrived by courier. Moving day, I unpacked that original transit pass from a cardboard box of keepsakes, slipping it into a leather wallet on the marble kitchen counter as a reminder of where I'd started. Aunt Colette called that evening, her voice cracking just slightly. "You did it, sweetheart." Proud doesn't even begin to cover what I'm feeling. The call started exactly 3 weeks after Forbes published their annual 30 Under 30 list. I'd made number 127, youngest self-made millionaire in the digital media category. The article detailed my rise from small-town waitress to content empire, though I'd carefully omitted any mention of family in my interview. One blazing afternoon, my phone buzzed on the kitchen island of my penthouse. Unknown North Carolina number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Preston's voice came through, cracking with emotion. "Fals, you're on the Forbes list." "How? We all thought you were just scraping by down there." He sounded winded, like he'd sprinted upstairs to make the call in private. I leaned against the cool marble counter, staring out at the endless blue ocean. "Check the article yourself, Preston." He stammered something about Dad seeing it at his office, Mom absolutely losing her mind over breakfast, how they all needed to talk. I ended the call without another word, my hand surprisingly steady. The texts flooded in next. Dad's came first. Companies in trouble. Construction industry downturn hit hard. Need your business advice urgently. Then a voicemail, his tone shifting to something almost pleading. "Thalia, we're family. Help us turn this around." I deleted it without listening to the whole thing. Mom went old school, mailing a handwritten letter that arrived 2 days later in a thick cream-colored envelope, her looping cursive filling 3 pages. Preston is engaged to a wonderful girl named Sienna. Wedding plans are quite elaborate. Your newfound success could help cover the venue at the country club. The ring upgrade Sienna wants. Blood helps blood, after all. She'd actually itemized everything. Venue rental, $35,000, catering, $18,000, flowers, $8,000, photography, $12,000, with a neat total circled at the bottom, $127,000. I stood on my penthouse balcony, the letter crumpling in my fist as ocean wind whipped my hair. I called Aunt Colette. She picked up on the second ring, immediately sensing something wrong. "They're back," I said, and tears came unbidden, hot and furious. Because of the Forbes list. Wedding money, business bailout, like I owe them something after everything. She listened without interrupting, letting me cry it out. "Now decide," she finally said, her voice calm and anchoring. "But set your boundaries firm as concrete, or they'll redraw them however they want. You built this empire alone, Thalia. Protect it like your life depends on it." I wiped my face, pulled myself together. Drafted careful replies. To Preston, "Congrats on your engagement. I'm sure you'll figure out the finances." To Dad, "Sorry about the company. Consider consulting with bankruptcy professionals." To Mom, "No funds available for the wedding. Plan within your means." Sent. Then blocked all their numbers temporarily, just to breathe. Preston tried a video call next that somehow got through a secondary number. His face filled my screen, flushed and angry. "This is completely messed up. Failure. You're loaded now. Why are you freezing your own family out?" I muted him mid-sentence and ended the call. Dad emailed from his business account, attaching Excel spreadsheets of debts. "Just a loan. Interest-free between family. You'll never miss it." Ignored and filtered to spam. Mom forwarded wedding invitation mock-ups. Your name on the program would mean everything to us. Archived without opening the attachments. Aunt Colette checked in daily during those weeks. "How's the wall holding?" she'd ask gently. I updated her on each new attempt. The barrage never really stopped. She shared her own stories about cutting off toxic people decades ago, reinforcing the line I'd drawn. Conditional love isn't actually love at all, honey. Remember that when the guilt tries creeping in. Her words stuck like superglue. The Forbes feature went live with full profile, metrics public, my face on their website, everything validated and official. Investor inquiries spiked immediately, but the family noise threatened to drown my focus completely. I scheduled an emergency session with Dr. Brennan, my therapist, via secure video link. Unpacked the suffocating guilt in 50 intense minutes. "Their crisis is not your emergency," she reminded me, firm but kind. "You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm." That prescription, that permission, reinforced everything. Mom somehow got the agency's main line. Jade transferred the call before I could stop her. "Think of your brother's future," Mom's voice pleaded through the speaker. "Think of family legacy." I had Jade transfer it right back to reception with instructions to blacklist the number. Dad left an unhinged voicemail with building security, demanding to be let up to see my daughter. Security flagged it as harassment. Preston messaged through a mutual cousin I'd forgotten about. "You're embarrassing the whole family. People are asking questions." I deleted and blocked that contact too. Aunt Colette flew down for long weekend. We walked barefoot on the beach at sunset, waves erasing our footprints behind us. "Boundaries aren't walls," she said, squeezing my hand. "They're doors you control. You decide who gets a key." She hugged me tight, and I felt years of tension finally release. "I'm so proud of the steel you grew, Thalia. So damn proud." Refreshed and resolute, I composed one final group text to all of them. No money. No surprise visits. No meetings. Respect this boundary or I'll be forced to take legal action. This is not negotiable. Sent to everyone. Muted all notifications. Silence settled for weeks like snow. Then one last certified letter arrived from Mom, photos of Preston and Sienna, a plea for reconciliation dinner, just the 5 of us. I fed it through my paper shredder without reading past the first paragraph. Dad's business partner reached out indirectly through LinkedIn, fishing for investment capital. Declined politely but firmly. Preston's social media posts turned bitter, then eventually just stopped. Aunt Colette's advice echoed through every decision after that. My team expanded without distraction. I hired 3 more editors, 2 project managers, a proper CFO. Revenue held steady, then climbed. I donated $50,000 anonymously to film school scholarships for underrepresented students. No family ties attached. And then came the invitation, the Forbes 30 Under 30 Summit Gala in Nashville. I booked my ticket, bought a stunning midnight blue gown, and prepared to step fully into the life I'd built. Aunt Colette would be there in the audience, beaming with pride. As for my family, they'd lost me years ago at that backyard barbecue in Charlotte. And I'd lost absolutely nothing at all. Sometimes the greatest act of self-love is knowing when to walk away, and never looking back.